Welcome to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. Are you over 40 and tired of struggling with your weight? Do you feel like you're constantly starting over with your nutrition and fitness? I'm Lil, a certified nutrition coach and former registered nurse, and I too have been there. At the age of 44, I decided I was done with being stuck in the vicious diet cycle. I became a nutrition coach and created the Feel Your Best Formula for women who are ready to do things differently. If you're ready to build a better relationship with food, get your energy back, build muscle, lose fat, and keep it off for good, then you're in the right place. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's build your formula for feeling your best. Hey guys, welcome back to the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. I have to say, it was shocking to me how many people reached out after last week's episode, because I honestly didn't put, I'm just being totally transparent here. I did not put the effort into it that I normally do with an episode. And within hours of, I published it for 5 a.m. And I think by 9 a.m. I had messages coming in with you guys just saying the overriding message was, thank you. This was exactly what I needed to hear right now. And part of me thinks maybe that has to do with the time of year where, we're starting new things, we're adjusting to a new calendar. There's adjustments being made as kids are in new situations with school and all kinds of things. For whatever reason, my message to you last week really hit home for so many of you. And I always appreciate those of you who reach out, because I know that for every one person that sends me an email or a message, I know that there's probably 5 to 10 of you that feel the exact same way and just, internalized it, and you were just thankful for the message. And that's why I show up on here, because of the impact it makes when I share my story transparently from the heart. Sometimes speaking truth to BS, I feel like, is a lot of what I talk about on here. I'm not trying to call out specific people necessarily, but I'm trying to, generally speaking, say, let's use our critical thinking skills and let's create a life for ourselves that is actually going to work. And let's stop thinking that someone else has the exact solution for us. Like, we have to be part of that process. You have to be part of the process for deciding what your day-to-day life is going to look like. If you want your life to look a certain way a year from now, 6 months from now, a month from now, then you have to make sure that what you're doing today is part of the experimentation and investigation into figuring out what works for you. And one thing I touched on last week was using an Apple Watch. And I'm assuming if you are listening to this, then you own an Apple Watch, or maybe you're thinking about getting one. Maybe you already have some sort of device. Maybe you're thinking of switching to an Apple Watch. But I don't feel that I delved quite as deeply into certain aspects of it. And I know that some of you already started using it, started like turning on the AFib function and stuff like that. So I wanted to do just a deeper dive on this episode, because you can use your Apple Watch for the time. You can just say, hey, what time is it? Or you can use your Apple Watch to really make your life easier. And I know a lot of people say to me, I don't want to get an Apple Watch. Like, I've heard this through the years, and this was my own fear before I got one, because I thought, oh my God, another device, which really means another distraction. And what I would say to that is when you learn how to use your Apple Watch, it actually can decrease distractions and it can just be a really wonderful tool to help you improve your health, both physically and mentally, because it can remove those distractions that make you feel like you need to be picking up your phone all the time. So I prepared a little bit more for today's episode than I did last week's episode, simply because I wanted to make sure I didn't forget anything. But I'm just going to wing it because, I have my little bullet points here, but I didn't map out a script or anything like that like I normally do, because I felt like, I had such a positive response last week. Why don't I just keep going with it? Because that's honoring my time, and you guys are liking it. So here we go. Today's episode is going to be about how you can use, I hate the word hacks, but maybe some parts of your Apple Watch system that maybe you're not using, and also some honest talk about how it can really help you, because at the end of the day, it's just a tool. Apple Watch, buying an Apple Watch, investing in an Apple Watch isn't going to make you lose 20 pounds. But if you do want to lose 20 pounds, it could make that process much easier on you. So let's just start with the obvious, which is tracking steps. This is one of the biggest benefits of wearing a wearable device that tracks your health. And I feel like a lot of people are wearing an Apple Watch and maybe don't even know how much steps they're getting. I know that many times when someone has come to me as a new client, the first time that they actually have looked at that data has been when they fill out my new client assessment. I have other clients who could probably tell me on a day-by-day basis over the past few days how many steps they've taken. So it's a spectrum, and no matter where you lie on that spectrum, I think that the data of how many steps you're getting can be really helpful. Now, number one, you want to make sure that the data that you're getting is actually pertinent, because if you're only wearing your Apple Watch for, a couple hours, you just wear it maybe to go to the gym and then you take it off, you're not going to actually have an idea of your activity level for that entire day. And I went from someone who was just wearing my Apple Watch from my workout in the morning, and then I would take it off around dinner time, and I actually did not track my steps. I actually went back in my history a few weeks ago just for fun to see how far back does that data go. It goes all the way back to when I got my watch, and it's so funny because there's so many spaces in it because I didn't wear my Apple Watch very much. And I had no idea how many steps I was getting. I was so obsessed with my workouts and sticking to my workout calendar, doing the Beachbody workouts, that I was neglecting this whole other aspect of my life. And I was getting maybe 3,000 to 5,000 steps per day when I look back historically when I first started getting my Apple Watch. And nowadays, I'm the complete opposite end of the spectrum, and I started wearing my Apple Watch to sleep. This is because of the app that I'll go into a little bit later. I've mentioned it before, but I decided to start wearing it all day long. And that has been really interesting. And now I really appreciate the data that I get from wearing my Apple Watch pretty much for 23 hours out of the day. I do charge it at night while we're watching a show. I put it on its charger because I got the newer Apple Watch pretty recently. I think I got it in June. It charges in maybe 45 minutes or whatever. So, and I'm just lying down or sitting when I do that. So it's really not a big deal. And I'm not super obsessive. There are days when I just decide I'm not going to wear it. And I'm not obsessed over the data. And I'm just using it again as a tool, the same way that I use the scale. But now it's kind of funny because sometimes I'll wake up and already I'll have steps for the day because I've gotten up to go to the bathroom a couple times during the night, and it's tracking everything while I'm sleeping. So once I started including this understanding of my activity level, that really gave me a very baseline sense of accomplishment in my day to know, hey, I'm getting 5K, 6K, 7K steps in my day. I know I was active. I can feel good about that. Even if I miss a workout, I know that I'm honoring my body by moving my body, and just getting an idea on, everything is a spectrum. There's no black and white of what a good or bad day looks like. But I know that if I'm getting, 5K, 7K steps per day, that's good for my heart health. And I want my heart to be healthy. So getting a baseline understanding of your health and wellness and your habits really can start with just seeing how many steps you're getting in. Don't judge yourself. If you have a desk job and you're getting 3K steps per day, guess what? I have plenty of clients who have come to me in that position, and instead of beating themselves up, they say, I really need some help. I want to strategize how I can improve this because I care about my health and I want to make change. And I really think that consistency and, maybe you have a job where one day per week you're getting 12K steps and the rest of the time you're getting 3 or 4. I would say it's better to look for more consistency each day and not pat yourself on the back just because maybe you go hiking once a week or you happen to have a certain day of the week that you are more active. I would rather see someone consistently getting at least 5K, 7K steps in per day, almost every day, rather than just having like spurts of, really busy days. And also just a reminder that while your steps during your workout count, there is some people are like, oh, should I count the steps that I do during my late day workout? Yeah, sure. You're moving. That's not the point. Like, let's not get into the weeds with this. It's just giving you a general idea. Did you move a lot today? Or did you sit a lot today? Now, some things that can also be kind of funny is one day when we went to St. Lucia, if you're on my social media, I shared pictures. We went horseback riding. I went bareback riding in the ocean. It was amazing. It was like bucket list. Someone like myself who grew up riding horses and hasn't ridden forever. Well, that night I had close to 30K steps. And you know what? It was my horse that was giving me the steps. So you can have different reasons for looking like you're getting steps in. So you just got to be honest with yourself. If you're getting your steps in from riding a horse all day, that is still a challenging activity, but it's all about being honest about why things look the way they do and understanding what that means in the bigger picture. So for most of us, it's just going to be, if you're getting around 2 to 3K steps per day, you got to step it up. If you care about your body, if you care about your heart health, if there's no physical barrier to getting those steps in, then it's time to get moving. Get off your butt. I don't care if you start a workout program. I don't care if you start tracking your food. Just freaking start walking, okay? It's going to be so good for your health, your physical health, getting outside, so good for your mental health. So start there. That is like the most baseline way that your Apple Watch can be your best friend. If you are someone who wants to dive a little deeper, then I'm going to talk about some of the other things that we can track with our Apple Watch that I use myself. I never really thought I would be that person. I remember when Fitbits came out and I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to be obsessed with how many steps I'm getting per day. And I just didn't see the whole point. The Apple Watch, and I don't know, Fitbits could be different now. I'm sure they have moved up the ladder in terms of the information that they can give you. But with my Apple Watch, actually the reason I got my Apple Watch was I found out that I could just have like the weather on it, and I could have my Google Calendar on it. And I actually wasn't even getting it for the health and wellness tracking benefits, if that makes sense. So to see where I am now, where every morning I'm looking at my app that tells me all this data about my sleep and recovery and everything. It's kind of funny to me because it's weird for me to be that person. That's not how I would have ever thought that I would become. I didn't think I would be that person. So anyway, I use this app called Athlytic. That's Athlytic. This is not sponsored in any way. I just use it. I'm sharing it with you. Nobody's giving me money to say this. It is an annual fee. Both my husband and I use it, and I believe it's $30 per year, which to me, that's like a drop in the bucket. If you are someone who's interested in your health and wellness and you want to have this type of information, then $30 for a year is just a no-brainer. But this app, through wearing your watch 24 hours a day, or like I said, I just charge it for like an hour. If you have an Ultra, then I think you only have to charge those every few days. So you don't even have to take that time off. But it's going to track for you your recovery, your sleep, your stress, your calories, your exertion, how much effort you put in, which is kind of funny because if you half-ass a workout, it kind of lets you know that. And it has different ways of doing it by having the numbers show up in red, yellow, green, blue, purple. It's a whole system, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing. But basically, you wear it and it tracks certain metrics that have to do with your heart and your breathing and even your body temperature. It lets you know if there's some discrepancies. And there's been times when I got COVID in January of this year, when I looked back on it, it was telling me everything was in the red, the 2 to 3 days before I got sick. And it can be sort of a harbinger of doom. It can tell you are getting sick, something is not right. You might also notice with your menstrual cycle that the couple days before your period, when you're fatigued and not feeling great, that your numbers are being indicative of your body just kind of being fatigued and not operating at its fullest potential at that point. And you can start to see these patterns. Now, what does that matter? Who cares, right? Life is life. Some days are good days, some days are bad days. Well, as I've mentioned here before, if I have a day where I wake up and it tells me that my recovery is 20%, again, ideally is 100%, and that doesn't happen all the time, but there are days when I have 100% recovery. But if I wake up and it's in the red and it's saying I have 20% recovery and I'm feeling fatigued, I know I didn't sleep well, maybe I think I'm getting sick, or maybe I've just been really stressed out, then I'm not going to work out. And it actually tells you, you know what, today is a nice day to go on a leisurely walk or do some light yoga. It will give you some ideas, and it will just tell you today's not the day to go to boot camp and exhaust yourself and really push your body. It's telling you your heart is showing us that it's a little under stress, and that your body, just rest and recovery is your friend right now, because sometimes we need to slow down to speed up. Sometimes we need to rest today so that we can go hard tomorrow. And actually, a lot of this technology, it comes from elite athletes who are sort of the first people to start using this information, because if someone's training for the Olympics, they can't go out and train at their hardest every single day. And they started using these types of sensors and tracking to help elite athletes learn when to rest, when to recover, and when to push hard to help them with their training schedules. So they were the first people to use that stuff. And now us, just regular old people who, I'm not even sure that I can do even 1/100th of what an Olympian would do, but I can still use this information because I'm running my own race in life, and I'm trying to be, the best version of myself. And always pushing yourself or beating yourself up when you can't go 100% doesn't really lead you to living your best life. So I love the Athletic app. If you are at all curious about it, I think they do a 30-day free trial, if I'm not mistaken. I should have looked that up before coming on here. They have a Facebook group. I actually had to email the developer of the app, the guy who created the app, and he actually emailed me back personally because I had a specific question that was like really important to know based on a unique situation that we have. And he was so helpful. He's like just a nice normal guy. So I cannot stress enough how much this app has helped me. And you might be listening to this and thinking, you are wacky. Why are you wearing your Apple Watch all day? That's crazy. That's fine. If you think that, if it's not for you, that is totally fine. I will say that both for myself and my husband, my husband is a type A personality. When he works out, he goes hard. And it was really helpful for him to see this app tell him like, hey, dude, maybe today you shouldn't push yourself, and I felt like it can be really helpful for someone with that type of personality who really is always pushing themselves to their limit. I wouldn't say that I necessarily have that same problem, but for me, it almost helps give me it's like my friend being like, yeah, this just today, let's just, it's okay to not do that workout. Let's do something. But it's almost like having a little coach with you that is telling you, helping you decide what decision you should make, if that makes sense. So while the Apple Watch alone isn't going to give you all this information, this app, I think there's others that are similar, but I'm pretty, I watch the Facebook group where people talk about other things, and I think it almost always comes back to people saying this is the best one. The guy who created it is super, super smart, super invested in making it a great product. That's not to say that you should be making all your decisions in life or health decisions based on, what this is telling you. But again, it can be a really helpful tool. Adding on to that, so, I talked about steps and I talked about using the Athletic app, which basically can help you decide how much you should exert yourself. Oh, I didn't mention the stress. It's really interesting. I said to my husband the other night, because I've been stressed out about lots of things. I said, my Athletic app, my normal stress is like 30 to 40, and it told me that my stress was almost 80 that day. And it made sense. I said, yeah, I was stressed out today. And we just kind of laughed because we're like, it's just so funny how this tool has this insight into what's going on in your brain, not even just physically, because the stress had nothing to do with a physical workout. It was just taking the metrics from the data of my body and letting me know, like, my heart was beating faster, my respiratory rate was up, basically it measures the time from one heartbeat to the next, which is your heart rate variability. And if it's low, that is a symptom of low recovery and high stress and things like that. So it's just funny how it matches up. But that's really the overall function of it, to tell you how stressed you are, how much effort you should be putting in for your day, ideally, and letting you know it's okay to push hard or pull back and to trust how you feel. And it, like I said, be your personal coach. Now, one thing I briefly mentioned last week and suggested, I want to dive deeper into this because I don't want you to just go out and do this and then not have an understanding of it. So I mentioned the AFib setting in your Apple Watch. Now, I do not have AFib, but I have my AFib sensor turned on in my Apple Watch. And this is because when you have that turned on, it gives the Athletic app better data. Now, what I mentioned last week about the AFib, it's because a lot of people out there can be walking around with AFib and not even know it. And we all have, if you have an Apple Watch, you have a medical device on your wrist. And if you have any concerns, if you have a family history of it, it is more common in males than females, but females most certainly can be diagnosed with it. And it often can be related to family history, and there can also be other reasons that you might get it, but also smoking, drinking, obesity. These can all be triggers to cause AFib or create an episode of AFib. So if you have any concerns, or you've ever felt heart palpitations or shortness of breath, and even if you've addressed that with your healthcare provider, if they brushed you off or not offered more testing, an EKG or anything like that, you can use your Apple Watch as almost an alert system, because what it does, and it may or may not tell you in the moment if you're having an episode, but what it does is every week on Monday mornings, I think it's like 8 a.m. Eastern time is when mine comes in, and it will tell me you've had 2% or less AFib this week. Now, for those of you who maybe turned it on last week, and if you see that 2%, understand that it's never going to say 0 for whatever reason. It always just says 2% or less. I know I don't have AFib, and if you look it up, Apple Watch will tell you 2% or less is the lowest number that it can be. Now, if it said 20%, 30%, 50%, then I would highly suggest reaching out to your healthcare provider. You can also run an EKG strip on your Apple Watch, which if you go into the ECG app in your Apple Watch, you just go in there and then you put your index finger on the crown. Make sure that you have it set up so it knows what, you should have done that in your setup, saying, oh, I'm wearing it on my left hand or my right hand, because that actually affects the ECG strip, knowing where it's coming from in your body. But you put your opposite finger on there, it runs a 30-second ECG, and you can find out if you are having an episode of AFib within those 30 seconds. Now, that's not something that the average person needs to do. If you know that you have AFib, then this is a very helpful tool to know if you're having an episode. But these are all the really cool things that your Apple Watch can do. And I suspect that we're going to see more and more medical information that we'll be able to use the Apple Watch for. I know there's talks. I believe they stopped the oxygen sensor because they didn't have proof that it was accurate enough yet. But I have a feeling we are going to get there, and you can have this awesome little vital sign check just on your watch. And I wasn't sure at first with the ECG if it actually gives you a real strip. My nursing friends or any healthcare provider friends on here that are listening, you know what I'm talking about. When you have an ECG, you have the multiple leads, like 12 or 13 leads, and it all looks different compared to where the electricity is coming in from in the body to get that information. But this does give you an actual view. If you are an AFib, it will show the wave of an AFib, and for normal sinus rhythm, which is what you want to be in, it's going to show the normal sinus rhythm. So it's just really, really, really helpful. And so I really, if you have someone in your life that you know has AFib, if they don't have an Apple Watch, and if they are intellectually capable of learning how to use it as a tool for their health, I would definitely recommend figuring that out. Okay. Additionally, you can use your Apple Watch for understanding how well your body is using the oxygen that you breathe in when you exert yourself through the VO2 max report, if you will. And I have to tell you a funny story. I didn't know much about it, and then someone was telling me about it, and so I checked mine. It was low, but then I did some investigation. Okay, so it only tracks this when you are doing an outdoor activity. And I feel like it's because it somehow calculates distance with speed and then your heart rate. Like it's some calculation. Now, I walk 99.9% of the time with my dog. So that means we stop a lot to sniff and go to the bathroom. So what I came to understand is, yeah, if you're walking outside with a dog, your number is going to be lower than if you're someone who can just go out and do a 4-mile run. So I don't put a whole lot of stock into that, the VO2 max, but it is a sign of cardiovascular health. I mean, when my son goes out for a 2-mile run or something every day, and I'm looking at his, and his number was like double mine, that was to be expected because he's young. And then as you get older, the number decreases, generally speaking. But again, it's not a black and white thing. If yours is really, really, really low, or, maybe you're never going outside for a walk, or you're never using the work, you have to use the workout app you have to use the Apple Watch fitness app and track the walk or the run outside in order to get the number to be accurate. But it can be helpful in the spectrum of things. Like if yours is really, really low, like if it's under 20, then it's probably a sign that you probably need to work on being more active. Again, making sure that the data you're getting from it is good. Make sure that you're getting some good outdoor walks in and getting accurate information for the watch to interpret. But if it's really, really low, just like if your steps are low, it's just a sign. Like you need to start taking care of your health. You need to start making some changes, or things could really start going in a bad direction for you. So I don't put a whole lot into it, but I did notice when I broke my ankle, it went way down when I first started up again with my outdoor walks. And now it has continued to increase, even though I walk with my dog all the time. But I can still see that subtle shift. And I don't know how often, maybe it's every 6 months, your watch will actually tell you if it sees a shift in these different data points. My resting heart rate was high again because I was pretty stressed out for a period of time. And it told me, your resting heart rate has been 78 on average. And normally it's like 62, 64 or something like that. So it was just telling me that it was aware that something had changed. And I think that is good information to have because we're not sitting around figuring that out for ourselves, right? The next health, so I didn't say this at the beginning, but all of this is in your health app on your iPhone, the heart little icon there. The other thing that I use religiously is the cycle tracking, and I've been using this for years. It's so helpful. I went to my appointment, my doctor is asking me about my cycle, asking me very specific questions, and I said, hold on. Let me get out my phone. And she said, oh my gosh, I love this. I wish everybody did this. It makes life so much easier when you are saying to your doctor, this symptom started on this exact day, and you're almost having a little diary. It's also really helpful if you're planning vacations and you can kind of figure out, what's going to be going on in your body. And it's also helpful just to see if there's any shift in symptoms. If you're like me, you're in perimenopause. I also was very clear, I told my doctor, I definitely had my first skipped period, that very first, where normally my cycles are 21 days. And then I had this big quote cycle of 42 days. So it was very obviously, I just completely skipped a cycle. And she said, okay. She's like, that's good to know. That's really good to know, because a lot of people might not know, number one, what their normal cycle are. And number two, looking for deviations. All of a sudden, things are wrong, different. But when you get used to using the app, you can just start documenting the wrong and different things right away. And then you're not trying to look back and think to yourself, was that 3 months ago? Was that 6 weeks ago? Was that 2 weeks ago? And it's, for me as a nurse, it's the same as documentation on a patient where, if you get called into court, for something that happens, you want to make sure that you're using accurate information. For myself, if I'm trying to figure out if something is wrong in my body, especially when it comes to my reproductive health, then the doctor is going to be able to give me much more accurate care and move forward if I'm able to give them information that I know is correct. So I really, really encourage using the cycle tracking on your phone, especially if you're going through perimenopause, you're having all these random symptoms. I mean, you can track fatigue, headaches, cramps, like all kinds of things. It's very, very helpful. Finally, one thing that isn't directly related to the health app, but using your watch to stay connected and notified about the things that you want to be notified about, and leaving your phone in a drawer, going somewhere else. There's so many ways that you can create boundaries for yourself. There's so many ways you can set up your phone. For mine, I have it so that my children and my husband can contact me no matter what. As long as my phone is turned on, they can contact me. Even if I have do not disturb on, even if I have a focus setting on, they can always get through to me. But that scam likely caller that calls me every day 3 times between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m., their call is not coming through. This is because when you have your watch, you can, number one, you can talk on the phone. If you have your earbuds in, you can answer the phone and talk through your earbuds. You can control your podcasts or your audiobooks through your Apple Watch with, listening to it with your earbuds. You can text message. I use the voice to text option and text from my watch all the time. You can just create these boundaries of, if you have an office and you have a closed door and people know you can't come in and bother me when that door is closed, but when the door is open, you can come in. It's just creating that same effect digitally by putting your phone away, creating the settings. I'm not going to go into the focus settings exactly, but I'll just tell you, this might be helpful for you. I have a morning routine focus setting on my phone. And so that means from, I think it's 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 or 9 a.m., the home screen on my phone has the apps that I use during my workout. It has my notes app open in case I want to make some notes. It has my health app. It has my athletic in there. It has my Carolyn Gervin app. Anything that I find myself accessing during my morning routine. Oh, it has my Tick, which I use. That's like my daily checklist, how I organize my life. Those things that I use during my morning routine to set the tone for my day, all of those apps are available to me. And then at 9 a.m., it shifts over to the way that I have my phone set up during the daytime. And then I can click a focus when I'm doing work. For example, if I'm recording a podcast, I don't want phone calls coming in unless, again, it's from my husband or my children. I don't want to be interrupted. And I have the way that my phone is set up for when I am doing work-related activities. And then I also have the way my phone is set up, what I call downtime. So that's where I do have my social media on there and other apps. I don't really play games, but maybe if you played a game on your phone, then that would be on the home screen for those times when we're using our phone for entertainment. I have my Pinterest on there and things for my phone that I don't want to be doing these things while I'm working, but I do like having the ability to do this on my phone. So I want to make sure that it's easy to access. So basically, using the focus settings, you can just create a different home page for each focus setting and just have the apps on there that you want to have access to during that particular block of time, whether it's work or maybe I have my morning routine, but maybe you just want to have a fitness setting, and then it automatically defaults to the driving, which I'm sure if you have an iPhone, then if you're driving, it has certain settings where it basically texts people back and says, I'm driving, I'm not going to answer the phone right now or whatever. But using your Apple Watch instead of your actual phone decreases the chance that you're going to end up scrolling or that you're going to end up getting distracted by, that group text message. And it's okay to put boundaries up so that you can focus on what you need to do. But I honestly put my phone in the drawer in the kitchen. And then even if I'm, doing laundry, doing chores, or even when I'm out on a walk, my phone is in my, crossbody little fanny pack thing. And I'm just controlling things from my watch. So really, and even if you have the upgraded watch, mine does not have the cellular service. Mine just has the Bluetooth setting. If you have the GPS one, then you really have almost no need to even have a phone other than to be scrolling or doing certain text messages or emails or things that do require that larger screen. So using your Apple Watch to create boundaries with your time and energy, I think is something that a lot of people maybe not even aware of or don't realize the capabilities that it has, and that you can control all these things just from your watch so that you don't need the distraction of the phone in front of you, which makes you more productive. Scrolling is not great. I don't encourage it. It can have, cause difficulties with your mental health, and it just can sort of make you basically use technology in a way that's helpful. And there's so many things that technology gets bashed for, the smartphones get bashed for these days, where it's bad for you and all this stuff. Well, it's not the phone itself, it's how we're using it. And we need to be adults and decide where we want our attention to go. And using your Apple Watch is one way that you can do that. All right, I hope you found this helpful. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions. I did answer some questions on the AFib settings for some people that had messaged me, but I just wanted to make it very clear that 2% is normal. Anything above that could possibly be interpreted as you had an episode of AFib, but even still, you would absolutely need to see a healthcare provider. And always remember that your Apple Watch is just a tool, and just, you can't diagnose things. You cannot start trying to treat anything for yourself just based on what the Apple Watch tells you. But you could take that information to an expert, to a healthcare provider, and say, hey, I have these concerns because I did see XYZ on my Apple Watch, and I really would like to investigate this further. Never, ever, ever, ever ignore shortness of breath, chest pain, heart, if you have palpitations, you're feeling flutters in your heart, or generally if you're just not feeling well and you think that there's something wrong, please go and get checked by your doctor. Your Apple Watch absolutely cannot tell you if you're having a heart attack. It cannot do that. So if you think you're having a heart attack, call 911, go to the ER. Hopefully I'm covering all my bases here and you understand what I'm trying to say here. That is, this is not the be all end all. It's just a piece of the puzzle. And if you are someone that's interested in living a healthier and happier lifestyle, then using your Apple Watch to its fullest potential could be something that makes that even easier for you. All right. Thank you so much. I will see you back here on the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast. If you enjoyed the information and discussion we had here today, then make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. If you're serious about making changes with your nutrition and fitness, then you definitely want to join my weekly newsletter list as well. You can find the link below and more information in the episode details. That's all for today, and we will see you back here next week for a new episode of the Feel Your Best Formula podcast.